wish you could stay here. Used to try to cope, it left me numb. Linger on what you say. Haunts me like a ghost I can't outrun. It's so cruel. I had to let you go. It kills me that everyone around can go on living like I'm the only one that's bleeding. A lovely open wound, cutting the shape of you. It kills me. I still try to forget. Everything reminds me that you're gone, like a voice in my head, playing on a loop I can't turn off. It's so cruel. I had to let you go. It kills me that everyone around can go on living like I'm the only one that's bleeding. A lovely open wound, cutting the shape of you. It kills me. Kills me that everyone around can go on living like I'm the only one that's bleeding. A lovely open wound, cutting the shape of you. It kills me.
Well, dreams, they feel real while we're in them, right? It's only when we wake up that we realize something was actually strange. Let me ask you a question. You never really remember the beginning of a dream, do you? You always wind up right in the middle of what's going on.
I guess, yeah.
So how did we end up here?
Well, we just came from the,
Think about it, Ariadne. How did you get here? Where are you right now?
we're dreaming?
You're actually in the middle of the workshop right now, sleeping. This is your first lesson in shared dreaming. Stay calm.
You are tuned into the real Flat Earth Friday, and we are live. How are we doing? How are you doing this evening, brother?
Good. It's been a busy week, but I'm glad to be here tonight. Thank you, and thank you to everyone who's tuned in.
Yeah, so we're going to be doing some real Flat Earth, and we're going to be talking about one of the true OGs in the whole modern revival of the, we'll call it the fake Flat Earth movement. My perspective. What can you say about my perspective?
So yeah, I guess he was around one of the longest, most OG of the people that were promoting that the Earth was flat.
Yeah, his graphics ended up being the mainstay of Eric Dubé's original videos. I don't know how many of y'all out there actually remember the videos that Eric Dubé was putting out originally. That the channel that had all of his flat earth proofs got taken down and all that wiped away. But if anybody remembers any of those original videos, the graphics that came from them were mostly my perspective. And he goes by a new channel name now, and that's UThink. And he's covered the whole Will Duffy having wolfie6020. They met up and they talked globe earth and in a hangar. And wolfie6020 is somebody that goes right back to my absolute roots. I was using a video from wolfie6020 when I was on Globebusters. Who remembers that? And I was using him as proof that the sun was rising and setting, south of east and south of west. While I went on Globebusters and told them that the AE map and model was impossible and the Earth was a virtual reality. So Wolfie is an old G as well, and so everybody's coming out of the closets. They think that they're wrapping up flat Earth and getting rid of it, and everything that they've done so far is just proven that we're in a virtual reality.
Yeah, you got two mics on me. So that should be better. The echo should be gone now. Thanks for that YD with the 5x5. Yeah, I mean, oh geez, that's what we're talking about here. Right back to the beginning of Flat Earth. We had Campanella, Jaron. Wolfie was second wave, third wave. But as the Glurfer, right? He came out, and then there was the Cyman Dan and the Professor Dave, and all these characters. And so it was my perspective, Rory Cooper, who was the first one who was analyzing the different movements of the sphere and different things like that, curvature, how the Earth was spinning, and how it would work with, flight paths and all these types of things. And he was really a revolutionary. He was one of the first people that were actually doing the modeling. And then, it was Eric Dubé who used a lot of his modeling programs and his videos that he had made, and all of Eric's videos. He just used them as just every single, thumbnail. Every single video was My Perspective's graphics. And so My Perspective is also, I believe he was a Jehovah's Witness. We did try to reach out to him. He's still promoting the single pole debunked pressurized pizza dome. Unfortunately, we'll be getting into that. But these guys go way back.
Yeah, the odd connection to being JW. That's what I was raised. And then also wolfie6020 has made some sort of connection to being JW. So and DJ Curious. So I mean, for a small Freemason cult, they're really well represented, right? Of course, I got out in my mid-20s and have been telling everybody the reasons why you wouldn't want to be in that cult anymore.
Well, I guess we should get into it.
Yeah, what you want to get into the video? And
so yeah, it was news to me. I didn't see the actual meeting in the hangar that Will and Wolfie had, and it doesn't surprise me that the two of them have teamed up, and that Wolfie's been a lot behind a lot of what Will's been doing, and they work together basically.
Yeah. So if you want to know, my perspective is UThink, and he's covering. He's saying the real line pastor Will Duffy interviews a real stupid pilot, and so while what should I call him? UThink or My Perspective, Rory. Well, he goes against the globe here. He also gets a lot of things wrong. So we're gonna be overstanding Rory on a whole bunch of things, straightening things out. The line pastor, we got that covered. When I interviewed Will Duffy, it became very clear that he's not a real pastor. He was given a job at a church that was being used as like a CIA outlet, and he has no real credentials. He was just told, oh, he's the pastor now. And he does all these scripted presentations. He's done a scripted presentation where he justifies lying, says that it's not inherently immoral to lie, even though the Bible strictly is against lying. And then so you have this guy that's supposed to be a pastor, and this pilot guy, they team up to fight for Earth being a spinning ball, right? That came from a big bang. The Vatican came up with this lie in order to be able to create atheists. And so trying to bring in that he's a pastor here is it's just part of the New World Order's story. You don't fight for Earth being a spinning ball and try to promote the Bible, right? The two don't go together like that. So let's start going through this. I think we might be able to speed it up a little bit here. Let me know if it's too fast. We'll try 1 1/4 and stop me wherever you want.
Hi folks, welcome back to my channel. In this video, I'm going to look at an interview that was done by Will Duffy, who's a real pastor, and he was interviewing Wolfie, who's supposed to be a real pilot. So Wolfie's going to present the evidence. Right? The evidence that he produces must prove that airplanes fly over a rotating globe Earth. Now, in Wolfie's replies and in his evidence, he never discusses the Earth's rotation. But that's a problem, because if the Earth's a globe and an airplane is flying around the globe, you need to explain how an airplane keeps its coordination, how it can fly and land and take off on a spinning globe. So he doesn't discuss the Earth's rotation at all. So he has a problem. Why not? Because the Earth is not just a ball that's just sitting on a table, it must spin. And if an airplane is flying around that ball, the airplane has to deal with the issues that come up with the Earth's rotation. So from the get-go, we see that the evidence that Wolfie is producing is a huge problem. So let's get onto it and let's see what they say.
Issues. And my goal in this is to completely refute all of the things that flat earthers say in regards to aviation by actually talking to a real pilot. Now, for the record, I tried to find a flat earth pilot to join us for this interview, and I couldn't.
For the record, there are pilots that confirm that the Earth is flat and that it's not rotating. Now, Will Duffy has been on record as saying that there isn't a problem if you lie and deceive people. He's on record as saying that. So should we be surprised that people with integrity won't be interviewed by him when he's deliberately said that he can lie and twist things and manipulate the data and there's nothing wrong with it? Because only a fool would go on an interview with him. He's already said on record that there's nothing wrong with it. So anybody with any wisdom wouldn't be involved with him. So how do we deal with Wolfie and his evidence? So we can take Wolfie's evidence, we can add the Earth's rotation. Then we can also ask the question, is the evidence logical? Now, you don't need to be a pilot. If things don't make sense or they don't add up, right, then there's a problem. And then does he contradict himself? So I'm going to show you where the evidence that he supplies doesn't add up, and you don't need to be a pilot to see that it doesn't add up. Right, I'm going to show you how he contradicts himself continually. Right, so either he's a fool or a liar and a fool. I would take the latter. He's a liar and a fool, and I'm going to prove it to you. Right. So a bit about myself. Right. I'm not a pilot, but I was an instructor in the military for a few years. I was involved in active duty.
Always military connections, over and over and over again. All these guys have been and served in the military.
Right. So you need to understand how a map works, where the location, where your target area is, the distance that's involved, because all of these things are going to affect your expectations of what you're expecting to accomplish through your strike, whether it's through artillery or through an aircraft. So in none of these do you, when you're calling in a strike, take into calculation the Earth's rotation or the curve of the Earth. Right, so if you're calling in an airstrike, that airplane can come from another country. His altitude is important because it has to match your altitude. Right, it's just common sense. His heading, his location and your location, you need to understand how this works. The pilot will come in, do his business and leave. Now the same applies to civilian aircraft. An air traffic controller has to control the traffic that's flying over continent, vast distances. The same data, same altitude, same coordinates must apply to everybody on that level field. That air traffic controller, the altitude that he understands, no matter how far away that airplane is from him, all of these three airplanes, they're regarding the same level, same altitude. The data applies to all three of them, the same altitude and distance, right? Makes sense to all three of them because there is no curve.
Hey everyone, this is super exciting. I am bringing you today a real pilot to talk about the Earth and aviation and everything associated with it. Now, for those of you that have been involved in this flat Earth versus...
Right, so what we're going to do with Wolfie's evidence, we're going to add the Earth's rotation. Wolfie doesn't include it, but he should, because the Earth's not just a ball that's standing there, it's rotating, it's spinning. Is the evidence logical? Right? And does he contradict himself? So let's get on with it. In this interview, Wolfie was jumping backwards and forwards, so it was a bit difficult to fit the information together. So I think it was done deliberately. So what we're going to do is just cut out some of the information and put it together so that it makes sense. So let's listen to when Wolfie was flying from Australia to San Diego or Brazil. So I'm not sure because he spoke about both of them on the same flight and referred to different destinations.
And I believe you were in Brazil. Tell us that story.
That's correct. And the irony of when I encountered flat earthers, it was halfway through a circumnavigation of the globe. We had flown from Sydney to Christchurch in New Zealand, and then across to Argentina and up to Brazil for the Olympic Games.
So he said, we flew. Means that he's not the pilot, because he would have said, I flew. Right? So we need to make a distinction. What is Wolfie actually talking about here? What is his...
It doesn't matter who was holding the controls of the airplane. If you're in an airplane that makes the flight here and it's within a certain amount of time and you have a certain heading, it doesn't matter who was actually at the controls.
Participation in all of this.
And on the trip back from Brazil, we went to Cape Town, Africa, and then we went across to Perth and back to Sydney.
He flew from Sydney, Christchurch, he went north. From Christchurch, right, the North Island, he flew over to San Diego, then up to Brazil. So it's important, look at the direction that he's flying in. When he returned, he flew in the same direction, Brazil, Oliver Tambo Airport, South Africa, right, and then back to Perth, Australia, and then back down to Sydney. So it's all in the same direction. Why is this important? Remember, we have to add the Earth's rotation in it to test if what Wolfie is saying is actually the truth. And does it add up? So, if Wolfie's flying from Sydney, he would have to fly around the Earth. If it's a 16-hour flight, he would have to circumnavigate the entire Earth just to get from Australia to Chile, San Diego. So what's the problem here? Well, there is no airplane that can fly that distance. Right? There is no airplane that can fly that fast. Because remember, if the Earth's rotation, let's just assume it's 1,000 kilometers an hour, because he's not at the equator. So let's assume 1,000 kilometers an hour. He would have to fly faster than that to catch up with any 16-hour flight. So you're talking about speeds that are over 2,000 kilometers an hour. Is there a civilian airplane that can do that speed? No, there is not. Nowhere near that. Not even 1,000 kilometers, right? So add the Earth's rotation. Is the evidence logical? No. Does he contradict himself? Yes. There's a problem with his information. So let's look at the flight back. If he's flying from South America, he flies to South Africa, the same applies. Why would you do this? Then he's got to fly around to Australia. Same situation. Right? So now here's the question. Why not fly the opposite direction? When you're flying from Brazil, fly the opposite direction, go to New Zealand, because of the Earth's a ball. It wouldn't make any difference, buddy. In fact, it would be a shorter distance to do that because of the Earth's rotation. Just go in the opposite direction, you'd fly for less time, save money, save fuel, time, whatever. It doesn't do this. So remember, if the Earth's a ball, a globe, which they're saying it is, then it must rotate. So from the northern hemisphere it would look like this, and from the southern hemisphere it would look like that.
All right, so this is a great graphic right here. So what the globe says they have going for them is that the lines of longitude are all converging to a point in the south like they do in the north. That's what we've been saying for the last 7-8 years. But the problem that the globe has with all these lines of longitude converging is they've got Earth spinning. All right, so air travel is one of those things. Like landing on a north-south runway was one of the original flat Earth proofs that everybody was talking about. And so what my perspective's showing here is that with Earth spin and the speed that they say the ground is actually moving and rotating here, and then the speed of the airplanes, that you couldn't actually keep up if you were traveling in the same direction as the Earth spin, and it would be so much faster if you were to fly against the spin, into the spin, right?
So does the information, the evidence he provides, does it add up? No, it doesn't. So for argument's sake, let's look at this on a flat Earth map. Right, he flies from...
That's not a flat Earth map. All right, that's a top-down projection of a globe spread out.
He flies from Sydney to North Island in New Zealand. Then he heads up and he lands in Santiago, or he lands in Argentina, right, just past Chile. And then he flies up to Brazil. Then on his way back, he flies to South Africa, then across to Perth. It makes perfect sense. So I'm showing you on a flat Earth map that it makes sense on a flat Earth map, because that flat Earth map isn't turning. It's not moving. So Wolfie needs to explain how an aeroplane can fly with the Earth's rotation and spin, and fly against the Earth's rotation and spin in the same allotted time. But with the globe, they'd be flying at different speeds, different distances, different times. It's logical. Does Wolfie acknowledge this, that in his flight training they handle this information? Our pilots taught us how to deal with the Earth spin, the difference in times and in speeds? No, they are not. So he's lying to you. Right? So, if the evidence does not add up, then Duffy is a snake and Wolfie is a wolf. Right? This is what it is. And the evidence is not adding up, and we've just got started.
Obviously from Australia.
Yes.
So you're intimately familiar with the Southern Hemisphere. The Southern Hemisphere, in my mind, ever since I got into this whole flat Earth debate, was the key to settling the debate and it completely ending flat Earth.
Yes.
Because the Southern Hemisphere on a globe, south of the equator, everything gets closer and closer together.
Yes.
But on a flat Earth, everything gets further and further apart. And so
That's not true. That's not true. We've been showing stereographic flat Earth maps, coordinate systems for the last 7-8 years.
when we get to the Southern Hemisphere,
Yes.
and we have flights that are going to go from, say, South America all the way to Australia, they're going to follow what we're talking about here, which is the Great Circle Route, which is the shortest distance between 2 points on a sphere.
Correct.
And when you get really far south, you're actually going to find that you're going to head in a southerly direction toward Antarctica, and then kind of come back up north to, say, go from Santiago to Sydney.
Yes.
And so flat earthers for years, they first denied that these flights existed.
Yes.
How many times did you hear that?
All the time.
Those flights.
Not only that, there was the fake flat earthers were denying that Australia existed as well.
Yeah, there's been such a ridiculous push. So what everybody that's tuning in needs to understand is that these two deceivers on the screen are completely relying on the fact that they need you to believe that the flat earth model or reality can only consist of one pole, the North Pole, and everything spins around that point. When in actuality, the earth is a flat plane and there are two poles, both in the sky and on the ground. You can go and you can have sigma octans 90 degrees above you. And you can also travel north in the sky and you'll have Polaris at 90 degrees above you. That doesn't mean that the earth is a spinning sphere, right? Just because you can theorize and have it in a model that's explainable in that way doesn't mean that we too can't have our theoretical models and understandings with a fixed stationary flat plane earth. Right? That's the difference. Each of us bring to the table our theories and ideas, and the one that matches or comports to reality the most will win out, right? Occam's razor shows that the simplest is usually the truth. And the earth being a flat, fixed, stationary plane with two poles, right? That's what we're trying to show here.
Yeah, so the 2D, 2-scale projection of Earth's latitude and longitude coordinate system actually projects looking like an onion here. And we've gone through this over and over. We're not going to go through the details again tonight, but just to remind everybody that at the equator, it's 60 nautical miles per degree. And then at 10 degrees north, it's only 59 nautical miles. And then you go through all these. When you're at 80 degrees north and south latitude, it's only 10 nautical miles per degree. And this is what the coordinate system projects to. It's got 2 poles. It's got the farthest you can go west, the farthest you can go east, and all the distances. And I hate to break it to everybody, but this is the limits of Earth right here.
Right, we'll get to the flights that they denied that exist. Wolfie's not being 100% honest here, right? So Duffy was talking about the distances. Well, that changes if the Earth's rotating. So his information, he conveniently leaves out the important information. You have to include the Earth's rotation, and when you do, what Wolfie and Duffy are saying is utter garbage. There is no plane that can fly at that speed at that distance in that time. It does not exist. So yes, those flights on a rotating Earth do not exist. They cannot exist, and it's stupid. So, if an aeroplane flies in a straight line, it must be flying over a flat surface. Now, if I rotate that map, that aeroplane can't rotate with a map. That means for every half rotation that map does, the pilot has to counter that rotation. If he's going from A to B, does a pilot who flies from one end of the Earth to the other end of the Earth, he would need to rotate his plane 180 degrees. Does he do that? No. Does Wolfie deal with this? No. So if this is this aeroplane's, that's his angle to the rotation of that Earth. Look at that aeroplane's angle to that ball. When he gets to the other end, he has to rotate his plane. Otherwise, he's flying in the wrong direction, dumbass. Do they deal with that information? No, and it's simple information. No, they don't. Now, just to show you that both Duffy and Wolfie, you got 2 idiots, and together, they're zombies. You would have to plan your landing at your destination exactly at the right time as San Diego goes by. If you're flying from Australia to San Diego, the Earth's rotating. Would you just automatically land in San Diego to match the Earth's rotation? No. It's not possible. Right? You understand the issue. Look, here's a guy, he's going to throw his ball into the basket. You say, okay, well, that's his arc. He can do it, right? People do it. Now, if I rotate that basketball court, it changes everything. 180 degrees. That basketball would have to land in that basket at the right time that basket is coming by for the ball to land in the basket. It's just common sense. Right? So when they say airplanes fly over rotating globe Earth, right? It's either because they're stupid or they're liars or both.
Yeah, this was one of the original arguments. If you were flying to the north or south, the timing that you would have to have in order to come into a runway, especially if you're near the equator. I mean, the runway's shooting past you at 1,000 miles an hour. It's coming in from the side. The type of precision, you would have to be so far led in order to have everything line up. It's absolutely ridiculous. And then everything's the reverse if you're going the other direction.
Right, remember we're talking about Wolfie's evidence. Dumbass. So here's the problem. The wolf and the snake have gone sheep hunting. Now, it's up to you. Right? If they catch you because you're not thinking, you have to accept at least 50% of the responsibility on yourself, on your own head. Because you're too dumbass lazy to check the information. You've got a brain, you don't want to use it. So when shit happens to you, you want to blame the other person. And so you go through your whole life being abused and trampled on and keep blaming the other person because you don't want to man up and do your homework. Right?
So Rory's another one that's saying if you're too dumb to get it, if you're too dumb to call these guys out on their lies, then you deserve what you get. And we hear that line over and over. This is how the New World Order shifts blame. They make everything debunkable, and then if you don't put in the effort and actually debunk it or do the research, it's on you.
As long as you go through life like that, you will be taken advantage of. You need to understand it. So, do your homework. Right, so if a wolf invites you over for lunch, there's the menu. Right. Where's the meat? Well, dumbass, you the meat. Do you think a wolf becomes your friend and takes you home because he's going to feed you? No, you're going to feed him. You are the meal. They're not your friend. Right? He's not your friend. Wake up. So, Wolfie, the wolf man, the sheep eater, add the Earth's rotation. Is the evidence logical? Does he contradict himself? So let's get on with it.
And I got called a liar many, many times. The amount of times that flat earthers would say, you're not a real pilot, you're a liar, you're an agent. It was just comical. It was like a whole new experience of how people treat you when you talk to them. And it was
just because he's a real pilot doesn't mean that he still can't be working for some secret society or an agenda. Whether he wants to, you can't just straw man one of the other scenarios, right? Just because you're a real pilot, that actually means that you're the most indoctrinated. You've been to the universities, you've got the degrees, you've got the different licenses, you've been fully trained by the New World Order team. So it literally does mean that if you're a real pilot, you are an agent, just like any of the pastors who have 501c3 churches. They're all promoting the disinformation in order to be paid. And Wolfie's no different.
And nobody was ever doubting that he was a real pilot. He was making videos from the cockpit with his voice while the plane was in flight, and nobody was questioning whether or not he was a real pilot or not. It's ridiculous. It's a straw man that he throws up.
It was like complete disbelief, and for me it was very easy to prove that I was a pilot. Show footage from the aircraft, show footage of myself, so it was something that came later on my channel. And
so he shows you this photograph of the heads-up display. Right? Where's the horizon? It's below the HUD. Right? You see the problem? Where's the camera pointing? It's pointing up. At the same time, film the attitude indicator. What's the problem? That's just common sense. Look, his camera's pointing up. Look at the visual. His camera's pointing up towards the cockpit. That means because the HUD display is closer to the camera lens, right? If he leveled his camera out, the HUD display would line up with the horizon because it was flat.
The horizon, depending on your altitude, right? The further you see, the more angle of resolution that you have. You do have a slight drop in where you actually visually see the vanishing point or the horizon. So the higher you go, the larger your field of view becomes, and the angular resolution does change. That doesn't mean that you're on a sphere, because at no point will you ever see curvature, nor will you see buildings leaning away from you. Even at the distances where you should actually see the buildings leaning away from you, you don't even see it. Mount Everest from Kathmandu, which is our largest visual observation, you can tell that it's perpendicular.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring this up. We've shown this over and over. This is from the Mall Angel Debunks the Global View of Perspective. We've got a drone. We've gone out and tested this. This was like the one thing that Red's Rhetoric and Sean Hufford and those characters thought that they had against us, because all the fake flat earthers were saying that the horizon always rises to the eye level. And so we've tested it. And when you go out and film, you will actually see that as you go up in elevation, the horizon does not always rise to eye level, but in fact, it actually does. It does
lower down due to your angular of resolution. It has nothing to do with curvature. For someone to think that is just absolutely ridiculous, because if it was curvature, right, you'd be seeing less and less, and things would be leaning away from you.
Yeah, the higher and higher you go, you don't have the horizon always rising to eye level. That's the reason why the heads-up display in Wolfie's plane is showing the horizon being above this, because he's flying around 44,000 feet. He's got a plane that goes high. And so there is this gap at the horizon that is expected, like Ron said, due to angular resolution. And we could go into way more detail on that in more of a technical episode. But I just wanted to point out that when he's saying that the horizon always rises to the eye level, that's as bad a disinformation as saying that ships that go beyond the horizon can be zoomed back in with a telephoto lens. So
because they cannot. Once something goes beyond the vanishing point, beyond your angular resolution, it's unresolvable. You can't see it anymore. It's the same.
Nothing to do with curvature.
It's the same straw man that there's only one pole, right? The AE map, everything has to get larger the further south you go. These are the ways that they've straw man the argument, and it's the only way that they can even limp into the fight, because we all know that Earth is a fixed stationary plane with the luminaries rotating around us. Everybody can literally watch the sun rise, the moon set, the sunset. And if anybody tells you that that's not biblical, they're lying, because the Bible demands that the earth is fixed and it's the sun and the moon and stop, because Joshua commanded that they would stop, and they stood still in their tracks. Okay, it has nothing to do with that. And again, Wolfie, he's never going to talk about the fact that the earth moves. Either is Will, right? They're actually arguing that the creator made a sphere, flung it, threw it into infinite outer space, and had us evolve from monkeys. That's what Will and Wolfie are actually arguing for.
Yeah, so don't let my perspective fool you with this horizon always goes to eye level. It's not true.
So he's being a sneaky little shitbag, because he's a dishonest scumbag. So did these pilots get it wrong? There's a horizon in front of them. Their attitude indicator shows that the horizon is where it should be, but not according to Wolfie.
And it was while we were sitting in Brazil for 3 weeks that I first saw flat earthers on YouTube. And
the other thing too, I want to point out, their stories. Listen, when somebody's lying, when they're coming up with these things, the details are always, well, when I first heard about flat earth, I just happened to be circumnavigating the earth. Okay, it's just a lie. So they use disinformation, they use lies, and they paint them into a narrative where they somehow have the higher moral standing. They're altruistic. They're ball earth altruistic, right? And it just makes me sick to my stomach. Just talk about how you were bored one day and you were searching YouTube, Wolfie, and you seen the debate. That's what happened. Or somebody at your secret society said, hey, you need to get involved here. Somebody needs to fight back. We're actually, people are starting to wake up and we're losing people from the dark side. I don't know what you went through, but don't tell me you were circumnavigating the earth, flying, just happened to be on a flight. Just how stupid that sounds. And sadly enough that, people do actually, whatever little piece of information that conforms to their bias, right? Jaron will tell you this, and other agents will tell you this. Your mind will generally cling on to things that reinforce the narrative that you want, right? Jason and I don't care whether the earth is a sphere or flat, right? We don't care. But we read the Bible, we read the extra canonical scriptures, we see what they say. Do they say that the earth is a sphere or a flat plane? Not specifically, but they do talk about it being fixed, right? And when it's talked about, it's more understood as this is a supernatural reality that we're in, where things that aren't what you would expect in a heliocentric Big Bang atomistic cosmology could take place. None of those things even apply to the reality that we are actually here to investigate. These two on the other side of the screen want you to believe that you're in a physical world that's a sphere that's spinning around a sun, flying through an infinite universe of nothingness, and we're just this tiny insignificant blue pale dot flying through the universe that just so happened to be in the Goldilocks zone of this universe, of this solar system, where we were able to climb out of some sort of a sludgy goo into water, and then somehow evolve from a fish into a land animal. And now we're bipedal. We now walk on 2 feet and we can speak, and we have the intellect that we're able to go around saying that Earth is flat. When in actuality, we're trying to tell you that we're in a supernatural created reality, and it's more likened unto a virtual one where we're here learning and experiencing things through the different senses that we've been given. And these guys here absolutely know exactly what I'm saying. They're not fools to this. It's probably what they got taught, right, Jason? They probably learn all about the virtual reality.
Yeah, well, Wolfie's already slipped in the 666 hand sign, and I'm surprised it wasn't at 3:33 a.m. that he did this transcontinental flight that proved we were on a globe while he heard about flat Earth. So the coincidences are uncanny. The fact that they're sitting in a hangar doing this interview type presentation, it's all absolutely scripted. Everybody scripted.
Much thought, except some of the videos were popping up were related to aviation, and everything I saw was completely wrong. So I thought, okay, this is interesting. The first video I saw was from Eric Dubé, and it was talking about the horizon always rising to eye level. Now, in the type of aircraft that I fly, we're at very high altitudes. We go up to 45,000 feet and above, and we're actually trained to identify that the horizon will be below horizontal. It's in the head-up display. It's actually in the flight manual of the aircraft that states this is due to the curvature of the Earth. So I started.
That's an indoctrination point. It has nothing to do with the curvature of the Earth. If you were an honest man who is intellectually honest, you would do the research into how the angular of resolution works and how we see to the horizon and the vanishing point. But for someone to be a pilot, right, to fly above the fixed flat plane Earth that we live on and be out here arguing that because the horizon is below his, what does he call it, Jason? Altitude? No, what's that sensor? He just named it. If you want to go back.
The artificial horizon indicator.
Artificial horizon indicator. So he didn't think that, hey, wait, there's no curve left to right. So if he's talking about forwards and backwards curvature now, right? Correct? That indicator is sensing he's flying forward, right? He's not flying left or right. So if you're telling me that drop is there on the forward indicator, you would also see it left to right. The Earth would be curving in all directions, right? But he's not honest enough, because you can clearly see that there's no left to right curvature, right? There's only the supposed. So whenever you hear anyone arguing that we live on a sphere, they're actually arguing that you live on a cylinder. You have to be very careful with the geometry and the things that they argue for, because you'll find out that they're always deceitful and they're always arguing something that's not correct.
Well, and something that we've been showing from wolfie6020 for a long time is he showed the moon being below his artificial horizon indicator and the sun being below his artificial horizon indicator, meaning that the sun and moon are before the horizon, right? So, I mean, he's proving that the sun and moon are below his aircraft. He uses his heads-up display, his horizon, all those types of things. This is before the horizon that the sun and moon are there. And yeah, I mean, this obvious proof that we're in a virtual reality. How can you have a sun and moon below the airplane that's only like 40,000 feet in the air, right?
Right, so is the evidence logical? Does he contradict himself? How can you test this? Well, you don't need to be a pilot. You can be a passenger, for goodness sake. When you on an airplane, what is your personal experience? The horizon is at your eye level, the airplane takes off, right? When the airplane levels out, the horizon is where at your eye level. Can the pilot see the horizon?
It's slightly below your eye level.
Horizon at a different level? No, because you're on the same floor. Right? That airplane turns in all different headings, it's still level. The airplane raises its altitude, levels out, the horizon still at your eye level. Right. So from when the pilot is on the ground, the airplane is on the ground, the horizon is in front of you, and as he flies, no matter how high flies or low flies, the horizon is always at his eye level. So
not true.
If it's curved, like he's saying, when you raise your altitude, what is that pilot leveling out to? What? He has to go back to his original level that was when he was on the...
Oh, right there, pause it. It's a great example here. As you can see, the curvature I'm talking about is left to right. Right? This is something that we're not ever seeing in any footage, right? Wolfie's talking about forwards and backwards, so he's saying the horizon in his indicator is below, but you're never seeing it actually curve down left to right, ever. You can clearly see here that if we lived on a sphere, this is what we'd be able to witness.
Curvature in all directions.
The Earth isn't that big, everybody. 3959 is not a very big radius. The Earth's circumference is what, like barely 24,000 miles?
Yeah, it's about 24,000 miles, and
that's tiny.
So the funny thing is to be totally antipodal on a globular Earth. If you go 12,000 miles in any direction, you're on the opposite side of Earth. I mean, 12,000 miles is not a long distance.
It's not that big. People talk, Jaron's talking, the Earth is so huge. I mean, that's tiny. That's tiny. 24 hours it takes the sun to travel through the whole entire plane of Earth.
And they say that you're upside down if you travel 12,000 miles. So just think to yourself, you go 12,000 miles in any direction, now you're upside down. Get out of here.
Because what is he leveling out to? If he raises his altitude, right? And he changes a few degrees to his left or to right, what now is he going to level out to? What horizon? Where is he going to get that information from? Where does that information come from? Is it just magically going to just pop out of his computer?
Bay, and it was talking about the horizon always rising to eye level. Now, in the type of aircraft that I fly, we're at very high altitudes. We go up to 45,000 feet and above, and we're actually trained to identify that the horizon will be below horizontal. It's in the head-up display. It's actually in the flight manual of the aircraft that states this is due to the curvature of the Earth. So I started...
All right, so Wolfie's saying that he flies higher than most as a pilot. He flies an Airbus. That's what he's saying. Now, is that true?
It's not
I don't
an
know.
Airbus.
But he's a dumbass, and I wouldn't allow this idiot to ride a bicycle, never mind a flippin' flying aeroplane. Right? So, his attitude indicator is related to his altitude above the ground. That information is constant for both, for the horizon and for his aeroplane. But if he's flying over a curve, the further away the horizon is, the higher the altitude must be. So he cannot be flying over a curve, because otherwise his attitude indicator and his altitude indicator would be out of sync. So he's talking nonsense.
Comes to flat earthers and aviation. And this huge misunderstanding leads to things like them thinking taking a spirit level on a plane would somehow settle this debate over flat earth and globe. What is this misunderstanding that they have causing them?
Yeah, spirit level's not bad. There's inclinometers. There's a whole bunch of things now. I mean, you can get these apps on the iPhone that'll show you the 3-axis gimbal. You can, and that's just a simple iPhone. You can get other ring laser gyros like the DSP-1760, and you can get, hundredths of a degree, and it can all be logged and recorded. So you can see exactly how much you were pitched up and how long you went level and exactly how much you were pitched down, and have all of that information.
Them to come up with these bizarre experiments.
It comes down to one thing. They do not understand how up and down works on a globe. If
here we
pass
go.
me that globe, I can do a quick demonstration.
So hold on. This is the witchcraft, okay? First
Right, so now
off,
Wolfie,
there is no up and down in a Big Bang heliocentric cosmology, right? It's all relative. You have to go into relativity, Einsteinian relativity, where everything is relative to everything else, and it's all supposedly pointing to the center of a sphere that you're supposedly flying an arc over. That's how they try to take the argument. But then you ask them, so at what point does it rain upside down? If we were to go down the center of the Earth, at what point would we be upright again? Right? Things like gravity. No one has ever shown something to pull it to itself simply due to its mass alone. Ever. Nothing has ever been that. Listen, let's talk about this, you guys. Come on, everyone that's tuning in right here. Where's the footage of the Earth spinning from outer space? It's 2025, Friday, April 4th, 4/4/25. We're in the future here. Okay, we've got planes. We're flying all over the world. They're supposedly in outer space, yet we don't have one video camera. There was tornadoes that ripped through the United States, destroying people's lives. You think you would have a camera from outer space filming that so that they can predict the weather and help protect people? It's 2025. Where is the evidence? Listen, everybody, you can't get high enough to take a large enough picture of the Earth, to get a large enough view of it. You can't tell that it's a curve. You can't tell that you can tell that it's flat, though. You can tell that it's stationary. Everything that Wolfie uses to navigate through this realm relies on the fact that the Earth is a fixed stationary plane. Yet he's up here trying to tell you that going upside down, flying around a curvature, means that it's a fixed, flat, and stationary plane.
is going to show you upside down is the same as right side up. Really? So down to the ground and forward is also down around the ball. Who's actually confused here? Right? Forward is the direction that one is facing or traveling. Where? Towards the front of the airplane. Right? It was a dumbass. Right? When you're reading a book and it says they went up and they went down, for example, the Bible says Jesus went up to heaven and Satan was cast down to earth. They came from the same place. Well, how does that work on a ball? If God's throne is the most high, above everything else, but you're on a ball earth.
Where is it?
And if you're in Australia,
Pause it, Jason. Where's the throne? Is it to the left of the sphere? Is it to the top of the sphere? And so what Wolfie will do, and Will Doofus, well, they'll say, well, show me where the South Pole is on the flat Earth map. And then they'll show you a single pole pressurized pizza dome map. Right? So they've taken the argument to something that they can't be defeated on, when you're simply asking them, well, if you believe in the Bible, if you're supposedly, both of these guys, Wolfie and Will, are supposedly fighting for the truth of the Creator, when you ask them, where's heaven? Right? Where's up? They're going to tell you that it's in all directions, but yet they'll mock people who tell you that all directions are south from the North Pole, and from the South Pole, all directions are north. They'll mock you when you say that, but yet when you ask them which direction is up and which direction is down on the sphere, they're going to mock you and say the same thing that they go and mock other people for. They're hypocrites.
Well, they're going to obviously say that heaven is down because the South Pole is pointed towards the galactic center where the Big Bang took place, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
God's throne is beneath your feet. And if Satan was thrown down to earth, right, then Satan is still above God from your perspective.
Mm-hmm.
So he's a moron. He's an idiot.
Is that there are some, and I never say all, I always say some flat earthers who believe that south is down. Okay, but on the globe, down is towards the center of the globe. So my finger is showing the direction of down.
This is like so preschoolish. It hurts.
It's pretty bad.
Is this supposed to be for adults? Like, down is towards the center of Earth. Like, I'm surprised they're not in a crib with the mobile spinning over their heads.
Various points on the globe, and not understanding this, and not understanding that if you have a direction of down, you have 90 degrees to that. That's horizontal. So that's how aircraft instruments define horizontal, by knowing the direction of down and going 90 degrees to that. That's horizontal. So when we talk about pitch attitude, we'll come back to that later, the horizontal that they're referring to is 90 degrees to down. And that.
Right, so what he's describing doesn't exclude a...
You want to pause?
Well, no, Rory's going to explain it. So because the information that the data that they collect states that the plane rises in altitude, its pitch is back, and as it rises in altitude, it reaches its its height above the earth, it levels off and flies flat. It doesn't rise or lower its altitude. It flies straight across the plane of the earth. They've got to then tell you, well, that's only, so there, it's curvelled. So it's level, but it's curving at the same time. So like a curvelle, right? Not level anymore. So when you see the horizon, it should be a curvizon, right? That's literally what they're arguing for here.
Yeah, so they have the gyro that gives them the artificial horizon, and then the altitude is set by pressure. So they know exactly what the pressure is at different altitudes, and so they can keep the plane level and flying at the same altitude with those two techniques there.
Flat earth, right? Forward, down, up, right? It doesn't exclude the flat earth. But there's a problem. So we're going to test this nonsense about up and down, what he's saying. Up and down makes sense on a flat earth. They don't make sense on a globe. Because remember, he's saying that forward must also be down, because you're going forward, down around the ball. Now, think about it. This airplane, this is his flight path around the rotation of the earth. So this airplane is flying. Where's up and where's down? Well, it's, if what Wolfie is saying, it's in relation to the center of the earth. So is this airplane flying down? No, as he flies around the earth, he's got to keep turning left. Right? So it would depend on where the plane is flying, on his flight path. If this airplane is flying around the ball at this angle, which is different, is not 90 degrees to the Earth's rotation axis, well then up and down must flip over. Up becomes down, and down becomes up. It's not the same for both. He's trying to convince you that it's all the same, one size fits all. No, it doesn't. He's lying to you. Right, so there are 3 airplanes. This is their flight path around the Earth, right? The Earth's axis of rotation. Is forward the same for both of them? No, they're both flying at different angles. They both have to turn to their left at different degrees to their left. Right. So is the angle to the center of the Earth the same for each one? No, they're all different. So it depend on your flight path around the axis rotation of the Earth. So what Wolf is saying is just utter garbage, and he's a fool and a liar.
Yes.
Now, I remember Rob Skiba, before he passed away, was talking about taking a spirit level onto a plane. Probably most famously, D. Marble, a flat earther, not only took a spirit level on a plane, but also filmed it. And they seemed to think that this shows that we don't live on a globe and that the Earth is flat. The biggest misunderstanding that I see on this particular spirit level thing is in their assumption, based on where you start on the globe, the spirit level would maybe look like this if you started here, and then as you traveled along the globe, it would change. So, but what they're not acknowledging is that no matter where you are on the globe, you're going to start here.
Yes.
And so let's demonstrate that here. I'll let you hold this.
The difference is, if I can...
This is so bad. So let's the level here, there's only one level. You can never turn it into any other position and have it be level, right? So that's proof that Earth is flat. I mean, otherwise you'd see this bubble spinning around a vial as Earth spun every day, right?
So what they've got to do is they got to be really careful. Look, they each got to hold one side of the level here, and they got to hold that. So what they're actually doing is they're debunking the sphere Earth model right here for everybody to see, and they think they're proving it by showing you that the level has to be perpendicular to the floor that they're sitting on, which is also level, which you can see the baseboard to the left and right of them, and the windows, they're all level, everything's level. And then they're showing you a sphere, and then they're going to spin the sphere under it while keeping the level stationary and tell you that that proves that we live on a sphere.
This is like ultimate idiocy here.
I can just show that. Flat earthers think this should happen.
Yes.
But what actually happens if you hold the spirit level is this.
Hold it for them.
So everybody that's in a plane is right here, and then Earth just spins, right?
Yeah.
Which is another debunk, because they say that the plane is glued to the Velcro to the atmosphere.
The atmosphere acts basically like the Earth's not moving, basically.
So the spirit level is always at the position of up, because up is opposite to down, and down is always towards the center of the
How many times do you think they had to practice this?
A few times.
I mean, can anybody in their right mind think that this is actually legit?
Hilarious. Look at this.
The airplane has to fly down the curve of the ball. So what is his nonsense? He's a complete moron. The airplane flies around the curve of the ball. Now all of a sudden the spirit level stays straight and the Earth turns. That's his answer for his bullshit. Seriously? Do I have to explain to you and show you that what he's doing is just so insanely stupid? So, add the Earth's rotation. Is the evidence logical? Does he contradict himself? So, does he contradict himself? Let's see.
Now, one of the things that I hear most frequently from flat earthers is something about pitch data.
Yes.
And they like to bring up pitch data, which I think is just another misunderstanding.
Absolutely.
And they seem to think that the pitch data is going to drastically and radically change throughout a flight around the globe. Explain why that's not the case.
It's the same fundamental problem of not understanding that down changes direction as you follow the globe. And because down is changing direction, so is horizontal. Again, if we have the globe. So if we look at
everything's
the globe here,
changing, or is it all staying the same?
Horizontal is there. But if we move to this part of the Earth,
he says down changes.
Like now, pitch data is being measured from horizontal at the location of the aircraft. And what flat earthers believe, or what some of them claim, is that this is the only horizontal there is. And so that as the plane goes around, it should be pushing
show us
down
the horizontal tool again.
What they're not realizing is that the horizontal is changing.
Show
with the curvature
us it sideways with the
1
bubble.
degree for every 60 nautical miles. Pitch data is measured from the horizontal at the airplane. Yeah.
Now, I brought along...
What a dumbass. He just contradicts himself. He's too stupid to realize. He's contradicts himself within a few seconds with his stupid spinning ball. All right, so remember, if the evidence does not add up, Duffy's a snake and Wolf is a wolf. It's just as simple as that.
Yeah.
So the first thing I want to cover is I hear this all the time. Flat earthers claim that pilots are trained on a flat earth and not a globe, but I'm guessing nothing could be further from the truth.
That is completely incorrect. You know, I can remember very clearly going to my pilot theory courses in Sydney, Australia in the 80s, and we had a globe in the classroom.
Okay, so he's talking about GPS, right? So he had GPS, right, before it was actually put in other aircraft, right? When Wolfie was flying his shitty bang bang, he was doing his pilot training in his shitty bang bang. He had GPS in it before other people had GPS in their airplanes, right? So when he went into the classroom, ooh, wow, they're a globe, right? So they ran out of
There's proof, right? There's a globe in the class.
Globe was in the classroom, so obviously.
Yeah.
funds, didn't have enough money, so that all pilots couldn't buy a plastic globe. They had one in the classroom, right? And they all did this training.
Can you imagine the homework, having to take the globe home and take a string around it and
Tough.
yeah.
It's the shortest distance. Look.
Right, off this globe. Really? Does anybody actually believe the shit he's talking? Because if you do, sorry for you, but you're a dumbass.
And all our textbooks show the globe, the great circles, the calculations are based on spherical math for a globe Earth. Yeah, absolutely ridiculous to claim that pilots are trained for a flat Earth. That has never crossed my mind or crossed my path in my 40 plus years of aviation.
I wouldn't brag about that, buddy. Very little has crossed this man's mind, because he's an idiot, right? So, he's never wondered, how can you set your destination direction if you're flying from Chile to Australia? Right. As a pilot, he's never thought about it. Your coordinates will be based on your position and destination by the Earth's rotation, which would change based on what time it is and how fast or slow you were flying. Your horizon, right? Your attitude would change depending on your path around this Earth's rotation axis. It would constantly change. So how do you set your destination direction? Right? If your destination is 1,000 kilometers under your feet, where are you flying to? You can't set a destination that's below you. Based on what? Maybe you can if you're flying a shitty bang bang. So how did these guys do it? Right? What training manuals did they have? Because can a Zeppelin, right, works on buoyancy? There were pilots that flew Zeppelin. Explain what Wolfie was saying, how it works on a Zeppelin. Right? How does a Zeppelin works on buoyancy? How does a Zeppelin work? A Zeppelin could turn on a tight axis. It's not possible for a Zeppelin to fly at an angle. That's what he's saying happens to an airplane. Remember, the angle must be 90 degrees to the surface of the Earth. Right?
This is great
but then
evidence
if a Zeppelin
here.
turns to its left, what's the problem? No, when the Zeppelin rotated, it was always level with the Earth, so the Zeppelin wasn't flying over a ball. Right? Look at the distances these Zeppelins used to fly at. You see the problem?
Yeah, I see the problem with having a single pole projection right here.
Unfortunately, he continues to use it.
If the Earth's rotating, that Zeppelin can't rotate with the Earth. So for every 360-degree rotation, if it takes the pilot 2 days or 3 days to do that one long leg, he'd have to rotate his Zeppelin in the opposite direction so that it can fly in the right direction. How does a Zeppelin fly in the right direction if the Earth's rotating? It doesn't add up. It's just simply not freaking possible.
In another podcast, we can get into basically the coordinates, and you can see how they're absolutely not accurate anywhere on this projection. This coordinate system is really bad.
And these were pilots that flew the Zeppelin, right? But according to them, they were flying around a spinning ball. So how did they navigate? Remember, if Wolfie is saying that all pilots fly the same, the information and the data must be the same for all pilots in the past and in the future. It doesn't add up. So what do we see? That a Zeppelin pilot would head along a certain heading. He would fly, because the Earth's not spinning, along that same heading in a flippin' straight line. He would change his heading to a new heading, fly that distance, and he flew for days. Right. And then they would fly along the next heading. So if you look at for the maximum longest run, it was 4 kilometers, thousands of kilometers, man. So Wolfie's talking absolute nonsense.
So how far are we gotten here?
Remember the information.
Let's do a Let's do a song break, I think, brother. I think we're halfway through it.
All right. We'll be right back.
On the dashboard, she's lighting up a sky. Reckless backseat fuss and guiding city lights. Yeah, I'm scared of dying. But that's what makes it taste like sugar. Life is all or nothing. We were born to live fast, die young. We're gonna live tonight. We're gonna live tonight. Never kiss goodbye. We're gonna live forever. Yeah, we're in the stars now. I wanna see you fly. We're dancing with the afterlife, but now is not our time. I'm screaming out the window, racing from the low for the high. I don't wanna ever calm down. I can see the world from this view. We're gonna live tonight. We're gonna live tonight. Never kiss goodbye. We're gonna live forever. Is that so wrong? Is that so wrong? Is that so wrong? Is that so wrong? We're gonna live tonight. We're gonna live tonight. Never kiss goodbye. We're gonna live forever. Is that so wrong? Is that so wrong?
I got to say something about this Hindenburg PSYOP right here before we keep going.
Okay.
This was some sort of a major PSYOP against hydrogen because
Definitely.
they say this was filled with hydrogen, and we know that hydrogen is the fastest burning gas and it implodes. This whole thing would have gone pop, and
And-
it would have been loud and boom.
And it's hard to
gone.
contain. So the Zeppelin isn't a great place to put it. But that song there was called Forever, and that's a brand new band. Your favorite color. Back into the content again. Yeah, the hydrogen was the reason that they took those Zeppelins away. That technology was way too important, way too powerful, right? To understand that we're in a water reality, and you can turn that water into just about anything that you possibly want.
Helium's a whole lot safer. Don't fill it with hydrogen, that's for sure.
Must be the same for everybody. So you think it's just a coincidence, right? That the Zeppelins fell like lead, or they're deliberately sabotaged? There's a problem. It was a brilliant form of transportation. Because Zeppelins proved that you're not flying over a spinning ball Earth. And if they were still around and people flew in them, they'd be laughing at you if you said you lived on a spinning ball. So of course, Zeppelins had to go. Because it didn't fit the narrative, the bullshit that they want to come out with. That you're living on a...
Yeah, like it would be pretty obvious if Earth's supposedly rotating at 1,000 miles an hour and you're up in a Zeppelin that's, clipping along at 20 miles an hour. Why isn't the land passing you up, right? Or why isn't it zooming towards you? It's be pretty obvious.
a spinning ball.
But airplanes are the same.
Well, and not only that, but the direction of everything, the wind, if you were on a sphere and it was spinning in one direction, right? the momentum of everything would be generally spinning in that same direction. You'd never have crosswinds. Just the whole entire idea of living on a spinning sphere is hilarious.
It was like Disney and Vatican.
So I'm guessing if we were to look in your flight manuals, in your training manuals, in your FAA documents,
Absolutely.
they're going to talk about the globe.
Absolutely. And one document I have on my channel it's an FAA order that specifically relates to how they designed the instrument approaches that are used for.
Share one document. But bro, seriously, you should have books, tons of books, pages and pages. Show us the pages. Look at one document, right, that discusses how an airplane can fly around a curve and land on a curve. Show us the document that shows how an airplane can land on a rotating Earth. Just show everybody. Stop talking shit and show everybody.
Pilots in bad weather, and there's two basic types. There's one type which is following a beam to the ground. That is actually a straight line from the ground, but there's another one called a Barrow VNAV, which is actually following a GPS lateral path and an altitude based on the altimeter on the aircraft.
Okay, so if an airplane takes off, right, he gets to his altitude, right, then he lands, right, that's what Wolfie's saying. He lands according to that beam around the curve. But explain how this works with his demonstration. Because we know how airplanes fly on his shitty bang bang. How does an airplane take off? Right, because remember, how does when an airplane takes off and lands, how does that tie into the information he gave you earlier? It doesn't. It's a contradiction. The plane that he flies is a shitty bang bang.
And also shows you the calculation they use and the radius of the Earth used in the calculation. So you cannot deny the fact that the FAA absolutely factors in curvature when they're designing these approaches.
Seriously? Does it apply to these pilots who are going to land on an aircraft carrier? Right? That's moving. Seriously? Do they factor in the rotation of the Earth? No, they don't. Not once. Never. Are these pilots flying at the same angle? Right? Show me in your flight manuals that a person at the equator would be flying simply down, but if he moves further south, he would have to start turning right, not down. Down now becomes right. And it can still maintain a 90-degree angle to that surface of that ball as he's flying and turning right. And of course, if he's in the north, it's the other angle, the other way. Show me this, because this is not possible. It's simply not possible. There cannot be one great circle route. You would require hundreds of circle routes, each with its own formula addressing the Earth's rotation and your flight path east and west and north and south in relation to the axis rotation of the Earth. It's just simply bullshit, that is what he's saying. So, add the Earth's rotation, he's a liar. Is the evidence logical? No. Does he contradict himself? Yes. So Wolfie's a liar.
It's all based on the WGS84 spheroid, which is the Earth. It's the same database, the same datum that we use in our aviation apps, in all the instrument approach charts.
What's that?
It's a coordinate system.
In the flight management system in the aircraft.
And if the Earth is rotating?
Horizontal is there, but if we move to this part of the Earth, horizontal is like that. Now, pitch data is being measured from horizontal at the location of the aircraft. And what flat earthers believe, or what some of them claim, is that this is the only horizontal there is. And so that as the plane goes around, it should be pitching down from this horizontal. What they're not realizing is that the horizontal is changing with the curvature of the Earth.
But yeah, he just said that it doesn't change. He says, no, it doesn't do that. It stays level.
I think it's funny.
Right? Do you understand? The man's an idiot. He's not fit to ride a bicycle, never mind fly an airplane. So if he's a pilot, you get on with him, fly with him, good luck with that. I would never go near this man, because he's a moron.
100% true.
Let's talk about flight planning. This is a big one because the flight paths on a globe versus a flat Earth would be drastically different.
Absolutely.
Planes need to get to their location. They need to get there in as short of a time as safely possible.
Yes.
They need to make sure they have enough fuel. And no one's going to fly on a commercial airline that is getting to locations in much longer times than other airlines.
Correct.
So everyone...
Correct. So the Earth can't be spinning. Right? Because if it was, right? The very thing that you spoke about contradicts what you said. So he's contradicting himself. Right. So the shortest route has to be around 90 degrees to the axis rotation of the Earth. Right. Whatever the height is from the equator up. Right. That has to be the shortest route to the circumference of your ball. You can't deviate from that, because now you're flying unnecessarily, wasting fuel, time and money.
Using the same flight planning.
Yes.
Is flight planning done on a globe or a flat Earth?
It's absolutely done on a globe. I've got my app here, which is what I use in the aircraft all the time. And you can see very clearly that it's a globe.
Oh, there you go.
Case closed, Jason. Shut it down. We're done.
And yeah, before
Wolf
they
is-
had tablets, he would have pulled out the globe, right?
Yeah.
So you would always have seen the pilots be going into the cockpit with their globes, checking to see what the shortest route is, right?
We put our flight plans on that. We can overlay the instrument approach charts. We can pan around. You know,
Well, I see a flat tablet, dumbass. You see, what is he deliberately leaving out? What information is he not telling you? What is he leaving out? Is that I can take a flat map, I can put it on a ball, right? The grid coordinates, the grid coordinates stay the same. So the ball is just an illusion. I can take this flat map, put it on a ball, the grid coordinates stay the same. It doesn't mean that the map is a ball. It's just an illusion. It's just a cheap trick. Which airplane here is flying the shortest distance? The one going around the curve, or the one flying in a straight line?
So this
And if
is a
it's
very
rotating,
important
you just end up
part
going
here.
back in the
Pause
wrong
it.
direction where you came from.
I'd like people to understand that if the Earth were a sphere, right, the higher you travel above that sphere, the larger your path, distance traveled would become. So no planes would ever go up 30,000 feet. They'd want to stay a lot closer to the Earth due to the fact that it would be a much larger arc if you were actually traveling around a spherical Earth. As you can see here, if you were to stretch out these two lines, the curved one is going to be like twice the distance as the flat plane arrow across the screen.
on a globe. And if we can bring up the globe, I'll show you something that might make it a bit more intuitive. If you pick any two locations on the globe, let's say we were here and we wanted to go to here, how you find the shortest route is you would put a piece of string between 2 points and you would pull it as tight as possible, and it will then naturally fall across the Great Circle track. And you can do that between any 2 points on a globe. A bit of string here and a bit of string here, pull it tight, and that will then show you the Great Circle path.
Loves this
Right.
trick.
That a boy. This guy studied for nothing. All he needed was a ball, some tape, and a piece of string. Seriously?
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, the Great Circle route is what is used by pilots to get from
Always.
point A to point B.
Always, yep.
And let's talk about the
Really? That circle route would change depending on the Earth's rotation, dumbass.
south of the equator, everything gets closer and closer together.
Yes.
But on a flat Earth, everything gets further and further apart. And so when we get to
No, no, only in a fake PSYOP setup, pressurized pizza dome.
Every time you hear Will Duffy say on a flat Earth, you know that he's crafted a straw man argument to make you think you live on a sphere, because he's giving a false argument that he can easily refute. That's the whole entire reason. If he was honest, he wouldn't have done this even once. He would have just been nothing about the proofs of the sphere and how it worked. If Will was actually here to prove that we lived on a sphere Earth, he would not be attacking flat Earth by using a pressurized pizza dome flat Earth society model.
the southern hemisphere,
Yes.
and we have flights that are going to go from, say, South America all the way to Australia, they're going to follow what we're talking about here, which is the Great Circle route, which is the shortest distance between 2 points on a sphere. And when you get really far south, you're actually going to find that you're going to head in a southerly direction toward Antarctica, and then kind of come back up north to, say, go from
That doesn't make
Santiago
sense.
to Sydney.
Yes.
And so flat earthers for years
Yes.
So Wolfie is contradicting himself. Remember with his dumbass piece of string? The shortest distance would be along that the rotation of the Earth's axis, right? 90 degrees to that, laterally. Right? No, he's just...
So, pause it.
Duffy's contradicting him, and he just...
So what he's pointing out is if you were to stretch strings around the lines of latitude, right? The further you traveled upwards, the shorter the strings are going to get. The circumference is shrinking, right? You would never actually fly all the way across all these different latitudes if you were trying to have the shortest possible trip between two places. You wouldn't fly all the way around the globe. You would find your closest left to right path on that same latitude.
Well, and with the spin, you would always want to be flying into the spin, because if you were going with the spin, you would be falling behind, right?
You'd never catch up. You just have to take off, drift a bit, and then like land backwards.
Yeah, well, wait for it to come up from behind you. Right?
Show us the manual on that.
Right? No, he's just, as Duffy's contradicting him, and he just says yes. So any aeroplane that goes north or south, that deviates from that, is flying in that direction unnecessarily, because you just have to simply fly back from where you came from, because the Earth's rotating. You're wasting time, fuel, money, because you could have just flown in the opposite direction, right, and saved yourself a lot of time and money. So when they speak, is what they're saying, does it add up? No, it doesn't. They're deliberately lying to you.
They first denied that these flights existed.
Yes.
How many times did you hear that?
All the time. And the funniest part is I heard that within a week of having just done one, having flown from...
Again, the coincidences with these guys, and not only that, but the characters like David Weiss, Jaron Campanella, Eric Dubé are the characters for over 8 years. Jason and myself, together and separately, were calling out as people who were up here arguing they were steel manning the globe Earth. Now, a straw man is when I create an argument that I can easily defeat. That's a straw man, like a straw character. Now, a steel man is when you create an argument that helps your opponent. So Eric Dubé, Jaron Campanella was the strongest steel manner for the globe Earth. Now he literally is just being honest and that he believes in a globe again. He always has. So you can see here, Wolfie and Will are doing the exact same thing over and over again.
We were going to San Diego in Chile, the big flight, but the aircraft I was flying at the time didn't quite have the range to make it non-stop. So we stopped in Christchurch, New Zealand to refuel.
So once again, he's misapplying and he's misrepresenting the information. So look, years ago, before flat Earth was a thing, before the spinning board Earth was a thing, I was making videos. There was very few people on the internet. So I had a channel called My Perspective. So the videos that I made, Eric Dubé used a lot of the animation in his videos. So I was making videos even before Eric Dubé was around, or any other flat earthers.
That's an interesting point that I want to get out there again, is that My Perspective is really the first one to put any of these animations out that ended up being used by the other fake flat earthers like Eric Dubé. So it was Math Powerland was the first one to sort of leak it out with his comedy routine. Then you had My Perspective that was actually putting out videos with graphics, and then Eric Dubé came along and started stealing and co-opting his graphics into Eric's videos.
Well, you still had the Flat Earth Society that's been going on, Shelton, I think his name is, for a very long time. So there was that show in the 80s where they brought people on and they mocked Flat Earth. Remember that? USA, you remember that show? So so there've always been that Flat Earth movement. There were websites as well. There were some forums that were predating the modern, rollout. Powerland did, and then Dubé, and then Sargent came in. And but so it was, Rory was one of the first ones. There were a couple other people too that have all quit. He's still the last man standing. And sadly, he never was able to progress onto a different projection or coordinate system where he understood that he needed to map and model 2 points, two different poles on the flat plane.
North Pole, South Pole, yeah.
Right. There was maybe 1 or 2 of us on the entire internet at that time discussing the issues. So I asked a question at that time, which is the longest non-stop flights? And the issue was a non-stop flight. So Wolfie said, no, well, it's not really a non-stop flight, right? They had to stop at in Christchurch in New Zealand. So it'd be at South Island. So that was the issue. So he's misrepresenting the facts, right? And so these flights were on and off. So when I checked and when I questioned it, right, I made a video, I can't remember, a long time ago, showing that, listen, there's problems if they're saying these flights exist, because I didn't see them on the internet. They weren't advertised.
But then from Christchurch, we were flying across to San Diego. Now, as it turned out, our arrival time was early in the morning. There was fog, so we ended up landing in Argentina, which was our alternate. But our flight was absolutely in the southern hemisphere at all times, and it went quite a way further south than the latitude of both Christchurch and San Diego.
Right, so now he's just contradicting himself again. He now is going south because that's what Will Duffy said, because they have to prove that they're flying around the South Pole. Look, there is no South Pole, that doesn't exist.
See, this is where Rory, over a decade on the internet here, denying actual measurable observable reality. When you go to the south, he lives in Africa, South Africa. I assume that he can see the southern stars rotating around another pole in the sky. That doesn't mean that the earth is a sphere, Rory. That this is how the creation was created. You have to have this. It is just basic.
North Pole, South Pole, lines of longitude getting smaller towards the north and getting smaller towards the south.
This is a flat plane we're looking at here, Jason's, and it's not the best one either. The moleweed projection is just keeps the land masses is pretty accurate, but only on Africa, right? This is the thing here. We're not going to get into too deep here. Just keep going.
I just want to show everybody that that the reason why we show the moleweed is because it's close to the onion projection, which is to scale. And then we've also covered the reason why you would fly towards the north or fly towards the south when you're traveling east, west, in those directions, is because
the shortcut.
There is a shortcut where the distance is, right? So it's 60 nautical miles per degree at the equator, but it's only 10 nautical miles per degree when you're at 80 degrees north. So by going to the north, you can actually get a shorter route, which comes from the Haversine formula. You don't need a string and a globe to come up with it.
If you're trying to lie, you do. Right? If you're trying to deceive people, you do.
That's why they need this airplane to go fly around the South Pole. Remember, any deviation from that axis rotation, 90 degrees, any deviation down south would be a waste of time, waste of money, because you're flying there for nothing, because you have to fly all the way back up again.
It's not true.
Then how do you land? If you're coming from that angle, how do you land in the country where you're supposed to be landing if that country is moving? How's it possible?
That's
it's not possible.
We agree with them.
They're lying to you. Right, so just think, a pilot that does aerobatics, wherever he moves, and he's different directions, different speeds, right, he loops, he can only have one horizon. His horizon in the airplane must match the horizon on the outside, so there can be no curve. It must be the same for the horizon outside and the horizon on his airplane. Think of skydivers. What do they see? Speak to skydivers, right? I was in the military. Ask them what the experience was when you jump out of airplane. A person in a parachute will use the horizon to stabilize himself. What is up and what is down. That's always at his eye level, no matter how high he is and when he lands. And how can he land if the earth is spinning? It's just not possible. So, in his discussion, Wolfie said that, in his discussion, Will Duffy said that Wolfie is like an expert. Right? And that flat earthers were rejecting this expert explanation. Well, the earth is full of dead people who blindly trusted the experts. Here's Dr. Fauci, an expert.
Skip it. I don't know if we'll get a strike.
He's responsible for the suffering.
But I agree. I agree with this too. I'm not going against Rory on that. But tonight's topic is about airplanes. Oh, you got the Freemason symbol with the sphere Earth. Yeah, that's a pretty decent picture.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, remember the globe is a Vatican creation.
That's right.
And so are the Freemasons and the Jesuits and the Knights Templars. It's all Vatican creations.
Right, it's about control. They can't afford you to question the bullshit that they're telling you. These people need to control the populations. They need to get get rid of a lot of people. That's the only way I can say it. Right. They need to reduce the world's population. So what does that mean? They need to throw out a lot of people. I don't know how to say this to make you wake up.
Yeah, I don't know if there's anything else.
So there's a couple more.
Here.
Yeah, there's a couple more things. So the link that you had from when Jaron had. So Wolfie was supposed to debate Nathan Thompson, and they were going to pay him $200 because that's apparently what Nathan wants. I find that hilarious. That's other stuff. We're not going to get into that stupid fartzoid nonsense. But this is what Wolfie brought on here. And I mean, if this doesn't make you laugh, this demonstration here, watch this demonstration that Wolfie's got.
But that's not how it works on the globe. On the globe, the direction of
how it
down
works.
changes as we fly around curvature. So if we fly around 5 degrees of Earth curvature, the direction of down is now 5 degrees different. And the horizontal is the datum from which this pitch data is being measured, and horizontal is 90 degrees to the direction of down. So as we follow Earth curvature,
here we go,
the
everybody.
direction of down is changing, which means the direction of horizontal is changing. And we can keep a constant pitch attitude. Can you see my mouse moving there?
Mm-hmm. Click over, click,
okay.
click.
So that angle there,
right
that one there is horizontal, which is 90 degrees to vertical. And this one here is the nose attitude of the aircraft. So that would be the pitch attitude. Let's say that's 5 degrees. I'm just going to play this video, and you'll see that the aeroplane is recording this pitch data in the flight manual, or the black box, you could say. It's recording the pitch data. It's measuring the angle between the nose attitude of the aircraft and horizontal. Okay? As we play the video, you can see that pitch angle is not changing. It's going around curve quite nicely, but because the vertical direction of vertical is changing, the direction of horizontal is changing, the actual pitch angle is not changing, and yet we can see the aeroplane is following curvature. So I've been saying this for a very long time. The pitch data on a globe is going to be the same as what it would be on a flat Earth anyway. It's going to show.
This is so bad. Fly 12,000 miles. Just fly 12,000 miles and you're upside down when you get to your destination, right, everybody?
So why isn't it that we don't have any zoom ins from the ISS on a plane flying upside down or downwards like this?
The ship's upside down at the
2025.
bottom of the globe, right?
It's like April 4th, 4/4/2025. We don't have any evidence of this. And this guy's got this clown animation simulator. And he's saying, look, this is how everything is perfectly flat, perfectly stationary. We just have to rotate the animation. The simulator has to rotate, but everything inside of the simulator shows perfectly flat and stationary ground, with up being the direction above you and down being the direction beneath your feet. Right?
We'll just rotate the baseline.
That's right.
They've been playing that charade for a long time now.
But so listen, everybody, it doesn't rain upside down. I think there was one more link before we wrap it up. I know YD had shared a pretty funny thing. You know, it's just common sense for people to think about here. Listen to this one.
If the Earth is really rotating, then why are airplanes flying? They could just go up in air and stay in the same location and wait for the Earth to rotate and then land. Why do they need to fly? Isn't that concerning?
It's true. Like, if the Earth were traveling at 1,000 miles an hour at the equator, you'd really just have to hover, you know, for a few hours, and you'd be able to be at a different destination. But this isn't the case.
Yeah, Wolfie showed it.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Zeppelin, all you had to do is just go straight up and wait for your destination to come to you, right? No,
it's
that's
ridiculous.
not the way it works, everybody. That's not the way it works.
Why won't Wolfie or Will Duffy come and have a conversation with us? Why do they hide? And, you know, if you say our names in their chats, you get banned and blocked. Why is it that they won't come here like men and have a conversation? So what they do is they, you know, say that the flat earthers are always, you know, controlling what they say and who they talk to, when it's really them. They're the ones that won't have this open conversation. So we teach that we're in a stereographical, biblical virtual reality, right? That's what we teach. And we can use the scriptures, and we can use observations, and we can use the fact that the Earth is a stationary, fixed, flat plane, It's founded upon pillars, and we can use all the different scriptures to show you how that it's also a virtual reality, like day and night being created before the sun and the moon. And we could continue to go on, and I could go on and on and on, but they're not willing to have the conversation. So we'll look at their information, we'll laugh, and we'll bring it to you as best we can with some brand new music as much as possible.
That's the way we do it. Well, you want to prep anybody for what's going on this weekend?
Yeah, we'll have a Rise and Grind on Sunday, and that's as far as we know. We will be reading a couple of new scripture books. I don't know if it'll be this Sunday, probably next Sunday. Be tuned in for Gad the Seer, a book that was written around the time of King David. Some interesting stuff paralleling, being righteous, trying to do good things, and trying to be a good person. But make sure you're tuned in. All the links are in the description box to our Telegram. We've got Reality Check Chat, as well as Team Yahawashai Home Base with different subgroups within that group. And you can get involved. You can learn about our fundamental truths. And make sure you're subscribed on my Rumble channel, because I will be doing a Sunday Rise and Grind, going through the top news and the new music and memes and a little bit of spirituality. But thanks, everyone, for tuning in. You're only going to hear this on the Yahawashai News Networks.
What's it worth it to you?